It is an absolute honor. I'm going to get right into it. This afternoon, to kick off the session, we have Ximena Caminos, who is known as a cultural placemaker, and you'll understand why soon. She is the executive director and founding director of something called the Reefline. The Reefline, I am not going to get into it because she will, is, I think, one of the most audacious master plans for public art I have ever heard of. And I'm very excited to welcome Ximena to give us a wonderful presentation, and then we will be having some questions.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Northeastern University, for inviting me to be part of this incredible program. I'm excited to be here today because this building actually was part of what I came to Miami to do, which is a large-scale cultural district, which is a FINA district. My background, I'm from Argentina. I moved to Miami around 11 or 12 years ago, and my background is the arts. I've always worked in public art, large-scale public art projects, like the Underline in Miami, and now the Reefline in Miami Beach. I am going to start showing you what the Reefline is. Let's see, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So the Reefline is part underwater sculpture part civic infrastructure, part marine sanctuary, snorkel trail, and it's really a hybrid reef. So what we're doing at Reefline, and that star that you see there, you will be able to fly. As you fly into Miami Beach, you will be able to look down and see it. It's what we call marine acupuncture. So I'll explain that later. In 2019, and I think Alberto Ibarguen was here today, and Raul Moas, we were recipients of the Night Arts Challenge Award, which is a very difficult award to win. And it gave us the faith that Reefline wasn't just a crazy idea, but if Knight Foundation trusted it, we thought, we could make it happen. And that opened the door for a 5-year-long path that has taken us to today. Today, we are the recipients of a $5 million government obligation bond that the city of Miami Beach voted the citizens to tax themselves in order to make Reefline happen. And the city somehow became our angel investor because with Knight Foundation, we started permitting and doing a lot of complicated, more bureaucratic things, but actually building a reef and getting an artificial reef permitted is something very difficult. So I like to say that New York has the High Line, and Miami has the Underline, and Miami Beach will soon have the Reefline. High Line is 1.45 miles long. It costed $250 million to make. The Underline, which I'm the cultural master planner, is an 8-year master plan and $120 million. And Reefline, more or less 7 miles long. It will be around the 40 millions. With inflation, we don't know, but more or less. So it's a marine sanctuary, and what I would like to do before I dive in deeper is to show you a video because it's a very complex project to understand, and I think moving image will help us. So would the tech team start playing our video, please?
Flight attendants, prepare to cabin for landing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So Reefline is part art, part science, and what we try to do is best practice artificial reef making. What does that mean? We're rebuilding what once was there. The Florida track, the Florida Reef, is the third largest in the world, and it's the only live reef attached to the continent in the US, and it's dying at a very fast rate. We work with a lot of universities, scientists, and cross-disciplinary teams across the world. Of course, we have a team here in-house. Brandy Reddick, our executive director, is over there, and our chair, Luciano Ferreira, as well. We are local, but we think global. What we're trying to do is to rebuild what once was there, because back in the day, a very bad sand replenishment project smothered the reef heads that were out here in Miami Beach. So we are very close, at a swimmable distance from the shore. It's a snorkel trail. It's like three Olympic swimming pools. So you could literally walk one pool, because Miami is very shallow, and then swim two, and you would be at Reefline. It's not, if you're a swimmer, it's not very far. So we commissioned OMA, the Office of Metropolitan Architecture of Rem Koolhaas, to design our master plan. They designed this building that was, inside of the FINA Forum. So Shohei Shigematsu, the lead architect, worked with us on designing the master plan. The 7 miles long is the span of Miami Beach. We are aiming to deploy in front mainly of public parks, so for accessibility, because Reefline is also using the power of art to connect people to the ocean, to make them somehow fall in love with the oceans again and not fear them. And really, it's a lot about ocean justice and giving an equitable opportunity to everyone, because there's a lot of people here that, in Overtown, for example, there are so many kids they haven't seen the ocean. So education, that's why we're here. Education to us is paramount. This is where we're deploying. That's our reef site. And the first 3 phases are Concrete Coral by Leandro Ehrlich, Heart of Okeanos by Petro Xesti, and that superstructure won't be deployed in the next 10 years. We need to go much deeper. And the Reef Star, the Miami Reef Star, that we think will be like a beacon for Miami Beach. Because if you think about it, you think about New York, you think about the Statue of Liberty, you think about Paris, you think about the Eiffel Tower, you think about Miami, and what do you think about? The beach? Okay, so you'll think about this star. That's what we call cultural placemaking. These are our phases. Each phase is around $1.5 million to $2 million, not pocket money. And that's why we decided to bring Reefline out of the water. We decided to have an amphibious strategy to be able to tap in as much audience as we can in order to educate this audience. So we are proposing in this 3-year master plan to have signage, a biocultural center to educate people about marine life, and also about other things that are not just marine life. I know the dean is a linguist, and to us, linguistics are very important because we connect the loss of language to the loss of biodiversity. As we lose language, we lose biocultural practices, and that impacts the environment. And we want to teach people about how we should think different. And that's what art does. Art helps shift the paradigm. Art is like taking a vacation and seeing things with with less judgmental and more open-minded. So through the power of the arts, we're trying to create a new narrative and tell a more compelling story. So this is Leandro. It's the afterlife of a concrete car traffic jam that will be populated by corals. We have our own coral laboratory where we test coral resiliency, coral resiliency, because the problem is the rising temperatures. Leandro is from Argentina, genius artist, Petro Xesti, Royal Academy. This is the heart of a blue whale that washed up in the shores of New Haven, and the university had the chance to scan it because it was in pristine conditions, and Petro augmented it, I think, like tenfold, because normally it's like this. It's like 1.60 meters, and it's an amazing biohabitat. That's Petroc. That's the real size of the heart of a whale. It's the biggest heart in the animal kingdom. And our beautiful star. The Miami Reef Star is composed of 57 stars, and we chose 57 because of the star compass. When we sapiens, before we had a compass, we used the stars to navigate the oceans. And these 57 stars are named after the star compass, and they're like a metaphor that we as a society, have to find new guiding stars. That's what we presented their prototypes during Miami Beach, and it became such a success that now United Nations has asked us to place them at the World Ocean Conference in Nice, now in June. And a little bit of what I said before, high art, blue tech. Blue tech is climate tech. So we use the best materials, the best building techniques. Reefline is about durability, scalability, quality. So we want our reef to be there for as long as possible, and to have the most positive impact in the marine environment, right? So this is our coral palette. Our artists, instead of using oil paints and acrylics, this is what they get to choose color from, is live coral. And this is one of our robots that is 3D printing the stars. They're really spectacular, these stars. So this is a little bit more on the amphibious strategy, the biocultural center. Jacques Cousteau used to say, in order for people to protect something, you really need to teach them, because we protect what we love, right? And the biocultural center is somehow like a visitor center in Miami Beach, where we teach about innovation, best practices when it comes to sustainability, and of course, always educating the younger generations mainly. So we would 3D print the pavilion like we 3D print our reefs. We want to place it in Lummus Park, which is a place that will naturally gather, people walking by. And there we would have a lot of things. Coral nursery, marine lab, and then of course signage, because we want people to understand what this is, what type of species live there. And important, our life is so much driven by tech, the digital integration. So for whoever doesn't want to dive will be able to see it on their phone. Just by pointing at the reef, they'll learn about what's down there, who did it, why, what's the purpose. And this was Miami Art Week. We are blessed with having a lot of attention. We always partner with a sister institution. We had 100,000 visitors in a week. Our media impressions were 376 million media impressions, cover of the New York Times, like you name it, everywhere. Because this is a one of a kind. It's the first of its kind. And it's nice to have it be coming from Miami, which is always perceived as a city with a problem, and we want Miami to be the city with the solutions as well, right? So social media growth, well, this is not that important. This is a economic impact in over a week. These are official, 100,000. And then it was beautiful just to see how people naturally gravitated to the stars, or come down and see schools with children and teachers, explaining them like what is marine habitat, how do these actually work. And we want to make waves across the world. So we're taking Reefline to different places, World Oceans Day, like I just named. And this is just like the senior team. We are more than this, and there's a lot of institutions that we work with. But as I said before, we are an interdisciplinary team, because to get a project like this off the ground and into the water really takes a lot of thinking. So, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that incredible
You're
presentation. So when we discussed preparing for this panel, I used to be a professional ballet dancer. Art often happens in a theater, in a museum. It often requires admission or buying a ticket. What you're doing is flipping that model on its head, right? Public art is bringing art to the people. So I'd love to know, what has the evolution of your own artistic journey been to bring you to this point where you're bringing art to the public?
I was lucky to be raised in a family that was very related to the arts and to artists. And I was trained as an artist. And I did my godmother was the director of the Museum of Modern Art. And I did like the prefixed artist career. Like I studied, I showed in the salons, and I would always win a silver medal, never a gold medal. And I realized that I was good, but that I wasn't extraordinary at doing my own art, and that I was much better than just trying to be an artist and paint things that made me happy or were beautiful, at really launching people's careers that were more talented than me and that would have a larger impact. So as I was learning that as an artist, that I was like a 7 out of 10, but I was at 10 at finding talent and then connecting talent, because I think my gift is connection and connecting people, ideas, concepts. I was working after the military dictatorship in Argentina, in the first public cultural center of Argentina that had 24 exhibition rooms and no budget. So we don't have any money. So we had to be except for the employees, they were paid by the state. Argentina has always had a big state, but we don't have money even to buy soap for the public bathrooms. So we had to be very creative on how to program, fundraise, and that was my school. I worked 10 years, I brought the first computer to that place, I made the first international exhibition room. So since like 19 to more or less, 10 years in total, I worked in large city or public institutions, in the Secretary of Culture, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, curating biennales. So I learned how the city was my canvas. And I learned how placing culture at the heart of anything really gives a sense of identity and of connection. And what public art does, I think, is, first of all, it gives a community a sense of pride, but it also, one of the beautiful things of art is that it can connect people from different paths of life, and it doesn't matter who they are, art doesn't discriminate. And I just fell in love with the transformational power of the arts, and that kind of like kickstarted my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's powerful, I think, the way you describe art and some of the functions and purpose that art can have. And I thought that really struck me in diving deeper into this master plan of the Reefline. Art itself is almost a tool, right? It's almost a way to and connect, right? So can you share more about your vision around how art is multi-purpose and can do so much in bringing people together?
Yeah, art is a tool. In our particular case, it's a tool for change, for positive impact. Also in Reefline specifically, it's a really big hack, because if you think about it, what we're doing is we're using cultural funds from the city, because our bond is a cultural capital bond, to build an artificial reef that has nothing to do with, with art, theoretically. So the way to get that reef permitted and to get those funds, if we would have gone through science, we would have never gotten what we have. So art was a master hack. And in a way we thought, well, Miami's an art mind city. Why wouldn't art be underwater? I think the leadership at the city really understood that, and they gave us a cultural bond. So art is a very important tool to bridge concepts, ideas, people. But not only that, what we said before, for cultural placemaking, the visual arts more and more over the years, they've been metabolizing a lot of new ways of approaching these difficult solutions we have to come up with when it comes to the climate crisis and the biodiversity loss. And it's incredible to see how a lot of those voices come from Latin America. And of course, indigenous populations that have for centuries been stewards of nature. So when it comes to protecting our planet, I think that there's a big role that the arts have to play, because the arts have always been a big ally to any important human movement, all of them. And in this case, they are our ally.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's fascinating. So art is the unifier almost between some of these different disciplines, right? And I mean, I'd love to hear also, because you are trained as an artist, and yet this project involves marine biology and 3D printing and technology. And so can you say more about how you have approached these very different industries and techniques and kind of brought them together?
Yeah. I like a quote by Einstein. I don't remember the exact quote, but he said that before being a great scientist, you first had to be a great artist. And I think that by that he meant that you have to learn how to think out of the box and be able to connect dots that maybe they're not so obvious to other people. as I said before, my gift, I think, is connection and connecting. And it's not just people, it's also the dots. And because I grew up in an environment where I was very early on exposed to the complexities of world making, so large-scale cultural districts, but at the same time at the mayor's office, we would oversee, opera houses and theaters. And when I was 22, we shut down the 9th of July, it's the widest avenue in the world, and we made a parade for 500,000 people. So I was already thinking like cross-disciplinarily, and I've always liked to learn. I think we have to learn, we always have to be learning, and I'm very fascinated by people that are not like me, that people who have other types of experiences and of disciplines. I love cross-disciplinary teams. And I really do believe also that the solutions, that we're facing today, they are deeply linked into collaboration and cross-disciplinary collaboration of very open-minded people with, I would say, a great personalities, because these are not solutions that can be driven by ego.
Right.
So I would say like 0 ego, 100% bridge, connecting the right dots. And I think that art, as you said before, art is the binder. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of the arts. The Reefline wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of the arts. I wouldn't have met Brandy if it wasn't because of the arts. Like somehow the arts have been this glue, that has allowed us to create an incredible playground and to creatively think about these difficult things that we have to tackle.
Right. I can't help but wonder about, so as an entrepreneur and founder myself, and Northeastern is a very entrepreneurial place. As you have gone through these huge projects and as you continue now to face the Reefline, have there been moments where, you've been faced with a very real barrier and you've had to work through it, obviously, and like if you can give us some examples of those and how you kind of solved that, I think that's always really interesting.
Yeah. That saying that says ignorance is bliss. I think I really didn't know what I was getting into, and that's why I could do it first.
That resonates. Yeah.
Then when I realized what I was getting into, the mayor called me, Dan Gelber, the mayor of Miami Beach, and said, Ximena, you understand I'm about to give you a $5 million check. You're not going to leave to Argentina tomorrow, right? And I said, no, I'm going to spend them properly, and you have my commitment. But in that path, you need to navigate so many avenues, because you have the government, you have public policy, you have all the government agencies, Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Environmental Protection, I don't know, you name them. They're infinite, and they all have a lot of power. Then we bumped into Surfrider, which is an incredible organization for surfers that were concerned, like if our reef would alter the wave. That only happens more or less when there's a hurricane in Miami, because it's not a lot of surf. So we had to be really good neighbors with Surfrider, and we tested we've gone through a lot of big and small challenges, like community challenges and educating people on how this is something needed with a positive, impact, and then challenges of permits expire, So if we don't receive the funds, the biggest challenge, I think, apart from having it all on our shoulders, which is a lot of responsibility, is that one day the city manager called me and said, Jime, like the contract you signed, your grant agreement, says that the funds that we're giving you are for Miami Beach institutions. They declared us an anchor institution. But we are we're in county land, we're underwater. And they realized that then we couldn't receive the funds because we are not a Miami Beach institution per se. Our foot is, on federal ground. So that made both cities, Miami-Dade, which is a county, and Miami Beach, and this was a lawyer's feast, have to sign an interlocal agreement between both cities so we could receive our funds. So that took a year.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we were like,
the permit, like the clock is ticking, you know, once the permit expires, the permit expires. So to be able to navigate all those avenues takes a village. Takes a lot of systemic thinking, strategic thinking, creative thinking, a lot of charm, you know, like being charming and asking please, saying please, you know, and expressing how important it is. And then, of course, it takes the most important thing, which is an amazing team. So I think we have an incredible team at Reefline. All the people that are there, they work pro bono before being able to get the bond for 4 or 5 years. Everyone so deeply invested in our dream, because we really think, I like this phrase by Yoko Ono that says, a dream you dream alone is just a dream, but a dream we dream together is reality, right? So in our little dream team at Reefline, we made Reefline a reality. So yes, we faced a lot of difficulties. The most challenging moment was about when I had to sign that grant agreement and read all the liabilities, all the responsibilities. So, oh my God, what am I getting into? So I called Brandy, our executive director, and I told her, you know what we're doing, right? Are you sure we want to do this? I said, Ximena, if you do it, I'll do it. And I said, if you do it, I'll do it. Yeah. So like Thelma and Louise, we grabbed hands and then we jumped into the void. And then we opened our wings and flew out of the void. But it takes courage.
Yeah, it takes courage. I mean, it takes that family and village, as you've said. So it's really so incredible to see this vision that you had now coming to life. So a couple more questions on that before we open it up to the audience. So please have your questions ready. In terms of you mentioned a little bit of the timeline in your presentation. The ocean is such an evolving, shifting sands environment, right? Like how is it even possible to answer the question of where do you think it goes once deployment has happened and these structures are in the ocean? Like, where does this Reefline project go from once it's even deployed?
What does it become?
Yeah.
I think it's, for me, it's fascinating because I'm a curator, no? And I work with some of the world's most interesting artists. And normally, art is something that in the one that I am interested in mainly, or the one I've done, I've dedicated my last years of art career to, is the art that really brings about interesting topics and raises awareness about interesting topics. And I think the beauty of Reefline is awareness and impact, because it's actually the art as an artifact, and the art having not only be something that is making you reflect and somehow have an epiphany and fall in love again with what's there, but it's also actually doing the work, because it is a marine sanctuary. It is providing a platform for corals to grow. The mix has calcium nitrate for corals to actually, take it into their little bones or it's not bones, but it's like these calcium skeletons that they have. So I see Reefline as an example, as several things. I see Reefline as a co-creation with nature and providing nature a platform to thrive on. But I also see it as a poster child of a possible solution, because, of course, Reefline will not solve the world's problem. But the fact that UN is calling us, for NIS shows how we can lead by example and spearhead social innovation. So what I think that Reefline is a cross-disciplinary platform for people to interact, for people to create, and it serves as an example of how it can really be a catalyst, because that's what it is. It's an accelerator, it's a catalyst. So scientists from have called me, how did you get the permit? We've been doing this trying to get this for 10, 15 years. And has a lot more fundings than us. And everything comes at the right time. I think the timeliness of the Reefline is actually perfect. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Miami is very quickly becoming an ocean innovation hub. There's a lot of, new ocean tech hubs spawning. There's a lot of attention into what's happening. And Miami is a window to the world. So I see Reefline underwater being awareness and impact and public housing for fish. I also see it being a super fun diving it's a diving site. You will go there and you will see like so much marine life, but somehow we're creating these underwater landscapes that are magical. So that's always beautiful. But I also see it like as a vessel for a very positive message to send out there to the world. So that's why I like to think local, but really act global.
It's
I don't know
beautiful.
if I responded.
No, you did, honestly. So it's so inspiring. And I love the idea also of like, this is such an international global group, but the idea of flying into Miami and being able to see this, right? I mean, how amazing is that? One final question from me, and then we will open up. But in terms of like when we might be able to like actually first interact with some of the ocean elements of this. So is there a soft timeline in terms of when that, like the cars, for example? Oh, and tell us a little bit about the deployment of the cars. This is really cool.
We're going to have a deployment party in August. So the process is really complicated. The cars are being cast, some of the reefs are being 3D printed, but in the case of the cars, each car is 22 tons. We are casting the cars, the mold is being made somewhere else. We're casting the cars here in Florida, and then they're put by giant cranes on barges. The barge takes them to the deployment site, and then these giant cranes grab them and put them underwater on a perfect line, because it's a traffic jam, and the artist is very OCD about how this is. And then professional divers like adjust them. So it's a very complex and big like thing, because it's cranes and barges and army divers. So in that sense, it's pretty spectacular. And we thought we're working on securing like a construction barge where we're going to host a deployment party so people can come and somehow witness the beauty of this. Because it is a legacy project as well, It's civic infrastructure, but it will be to Miami what the High Line is to New York. But even more so because Miami is kind of like sinking,
Thank you.